You are not your personality. You are not your memories. You are not your roles. You are not your thoughts. And if all of that is true, then the question becomes very uncomfortable very fast. Who the hell are you? There's an ancient philosophy called Vedanta that tried to answer that question thousands of years ago. And their answer basically destroys the way most people think about identity, success, failure, anxiety, even death. So in this video, we're going to do something a little dangerous. We're going to remove your personality, your memories, your thoughts, and your role. And if nothing is left, that's a problem. Are you ready to rock? Let's rock that wisdom! You ever notice you're not actually one person? You're one person with your friends, another with your parents, another at work, another on a first date, another when you're alone doing absolutely nothing. So, which one is your personality? You talk about personality like it's this solid, permanent shit. This is just who I am. But if who you are changes depending on the room you're in, that's not a fixed identity. That's adaptation. That's social survival. That's reading the room and adjusting the character. Most personalities are not discovered, they're assembled. A few insecurities, a few strengths, a sense of humor, a defense mechanism, and a version of you that people seem to accept. And this matters more than you think, because you probably spend your entire life defending your personality like it's your actual soul. Someone calls you boring, you feel attacked. Someone says you're arrogant, you get defensive. Someone says you've changed, you panic a little, because if your personality is you, then criticism feels like someone is attacking your existence. But if your personality is something you built, then criticism is just feedback on the character, not an attack on the actor. That's a very different problem, Vedanta basically says. Your personality is something you have, not something you are. It's more like clothing than skin. You wore a personality at 10 years old, another at 15, another at 20, another when you tried to be cool, another when you tried to be mature. They all felt like you at the time, but they can't all be you. So something changed, but something also stayed. And now the question starts getting interesting. If you are not your personality, maybe you are your past, your experiences, your memories, but that idea starts falling apart too. You love your past. You love telling the story. This is why I'm like this. This is what happened to me. This is where I come from. Everyone has a personal documentary playing in their head where they're the main character. But there's a problem. Your memories are not recordings. They're edits. You don't remember things as they happened. You remember them as the story you've been telling yourself about them. You are basically a walking highlight reel mixed with a few traumatic flashbacks and some scenes you completely misunderstood at the time. And then you call that your identity. And it gets worse. You don't even remember most of your life. Entire years are gone. Random Tuesdays disappeared forever. Thousands of conversations. Gone. Moments that probably changed you. Gone. But the brain keeps a few dramatic scenes and goes, yep, that's who I am. Imagine if Netflix deleted 90% of a show and you had to guess the plot from the remaining episodes. That's how most people understand their own fucking life. You're basically a biography trying to justify its own existence. And here's where the whole thing falls apart. If you lost your memory tomorrow, you wouldn't disappear. You'd still be there. Confused, sure. Lost, probably. But still there. Still aware. Still experiencing. So you cannot be your memories, which means something very uncomfortable. You are not your past. Not your biggest mistake. Not your worst heartbreak. Not your childhood. Not your success story. Not the one thing you're proud of. Not the one thing you're ashamed of. Your past happened, but it is not what you are. If you keep staring at the rearview mirror, don't be surprised when you crash the car. And if that's true, then the voice in your head that keeps replaying the past and predicting the future probably isn't you either. So now we have a new problem. Maybe you think you are your thoughts. That's where this gets really weird. Realize this. You don't actually control most of your thoughts. A thought just appears, then another, Half of them are useless. Some are brilliant. Some are dark. And somehow, you decided all of them are you. That's insane. And they just show up. You don't sit down in the morning and say, today, I will think about that awkward thing I said in 2014. So, if you're not choosing most of your thoughts, why do you assume they are you? Here's a simple, dangerous observation. You can watch your thoughts. Yeah, you can sit quietly and see thoughts appear, stay for a bit, and disappear, like cars passing on a road, like people walking past a window, which creates a very strange situation. If you can observe a thought, then the thought is not you. Because the observer and the observed cannot be the same thing, which means something in you is watching your thoughts, watching your memories, watching your personality, watching your life. And that raises a very uncomfortable question. Who the fuck is the one watching? And this is where Vedanta enters the conversation. Because Vedanta basically says the real you is not the voice in your head, it's the one listening to it. And if that's true, then you have spent your entire life being bullied and praised by a voice that isn't even yours. The voice that says, you're not good enough, you're behind in life, you're embarrassing, you're awesome, you're brilliant. Vedanta would say, yeah, that voice is not you. That's just noise passing through. You are the one who hears it, which means you've been taking life advice from a voice that also suggests terrible arguments in the shower and replays embarrassing moments from 12 years ago. And that changes everything. Because if you were the thoughts, you would have to control them. If you are the thoughts, every negative thought is a problem. If you are the thoughts, anxiety is your identity. Anxiety is what happens when the character thinks it's the author. But if you are the observer of the thoughts, then thoughts are just weather. And you are the sky. And now we're getting very close to the core idea of Vedanta. But before we go there, we have to remove one more thing you probably think you are. And this one messes people up a lot. I'm a lawyer. I'm a designer. I'm a founder. I'm unemployed. That's how we define ourselves most times. Nobody says, hi, I'm a conscious entity temporarily operating a nervous system on a floating rock in space. Which is a lot more accurate but terrible for networking. So we reduce ourselves to job titles, roles, functions, productivity labels. You're not a human anymore. You're a LinkedIn headline with anxiety, a resume with a nervous system. And this matters more than you think. Because when people lose a job, they don't just lose income, they lose identity. People retire and don't know who they are anymore. Athletes retire and fall into depression. Parents build their whole identity around being parents, and then the kids leave, and suddenly there's silence. And they don't know who they are without someone needing them. Because if you are the role, then when the role ends, you end. But roles change constantly. You were a student, then maybe unemployed, then maybe successful, then maybe lost again, then maybe something else. Roles change. Money changes, status changes, other people's opinions change every 5 minutes and they're usually wrong anyway. So if your identity is built on your role, then your identity is built on something extremely unstable. Vedanta would say something very simple and very brutal. You are not the role. You are the one playing the role, like an actor. In one movie, he's a hero. In another, he's a villain. In another, he dies in the first 5 minutes. But the actor is still the actor. The role changes. The actor doesn't. Strip away the costume, the story, the job title, and somehow you're still here. So now we have a serious problem. Because if you are none of those things, what the hell are you? This is where Vedanta begins. There's something strange you can try right now. Grab a beer and just sit for a moment and watch your thoughts. Not control them, not change them, just watch. A thought appears, then another, then another. They come from nowhere. They stay for a bit. They disappear again. And you're just watching, which is fucked up when you think about it. Because it means there are two things happening. The thoughts and the one watching the thoughts. So maybe you are the voice in your head. But if you can hear the voice, then you are not the voice. You are the one listening. This is where Vedanta enters like a philosophical plot twist. Vedanta says the real you is not the mask, the story, the thoughts, or the role. The real you is the observer of all of them, the witness, the awareness behind everything you experience. You are not the movie. You are the screen the movie is playing on. The movie can be a comedy, a tragedy, a disaster, a romance, or complete bullshit. The screen doesn't care. Vedanta calls this the Atman, the true self, not the social self, not the psychological self, not the story, the observer, the thing that has been there when you were a child, when you were a teenager, when you were lost, when you were confident, when you were heartbroken, when you were happy, when you were anxious, when everything changed. Something was there through all of it, watching, not panicking, not succeeding, not failing, just watching. And here's why this matters. If you think you're the mask, every insult hurts. If you think you're the story, every mistake defines you. If you think you're the voice, every bad thought owns you. If you think you're the role, every failure feels fatal. But if you are the observer, then personality, past, thoughts, success, failure, anxiety, embarrassment, they are all just things happening in your experience, not what you are. And that is a very different way to exist. But Vedanta goes even further than this. It doesn't just say the observer is you. It says something much bigger, much weirder, and honestly, much harder to understand at first. Enter Maya. People translate Maya as illusion, but don't think Matrix movie nothing is real type of shit. It's worse than that. Look at modern life for 5 minutes and tell me this isn't weird. People wake up to alarms they hate, to go to jobs they don't care about, to earn money to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like, while slowly destroying their attention span and lower back. And we call this a normal fucking life. That's Maya. People are not just choosing careers, they're choosing identities. People are not just buying clothes, they're buying personalities. People are not just posting photos, they're negotiating social status in a giant digital high school that never ends. Social media is basically identity advertising. Most people are not living their lives, they're managing their image. They're afraid of being nobody. And that fear, the fear of being nobody, drives almost everything. Careers, status, competition, comparison, burnout, midlife crises, existential dread on Sunday evenings. Vedanta looks at all of this and basically says, you are trying to solve the wrong problem. You think the problem is not successful enough, not respected enough, not attractive enough, not rich enough, not productive enough, not special enough. Vedanta says the real problem is much simpler and much more dangerous. You don't know who you are, so you keep trying to fix your life from the outside. That's like repainting the house while the foundation is on fire. So you build an identity, then you spend your whole life defending it, improving it, comparing it, promoting it, and worrying about it. That's Maya. Maya is not that the world doesn't exist. Maya is that you are constantly mistaking the costume for the actor, mistaking the role for the self, mistaking status for value, mistaking attention for love, mistaking productivity for meaning, mistaking success for happiness, mistaking your LinkedIn profile for a human being. And once you start seeing this, things get a little uncomfortable, because you start realizing that most people are not living their lives. They are managing their identity, optimizing it, branding it, comparing it, defending it, exhausting themselves trying to make it look important. And this is where Vedanta drops the biggest bomb of all. It says the observer in you, the awareness, is not separate from reality itself. But then, what the fuck is reality? Enter Brahman. Vedanta calls the ultimate reality Brahman. Not a god sitting in the clouds, judging your career choices. Not a guy with a beard, not a cosmic manager. Brahman just means the fundamental reality of everything that exists. The thing everything is made of. The thing everything appears in. The thing everything disappears back into. Everything you see, people, cities, animals, oceans, stars, your phone, your thoughts, your problems, your entire life is different forms of the same underlying reality. Like waves in an ocean, every wave looks separate. One is big, one is small, one is fast, one crashes dramatically and thinks it's important and awesome. But every wave is still water. The wave has a temporary shape, a temporary form, a temporary life, but its substance is the ocean. Vedanta says human beings are like that. You think you are a separate individual, completely isolated, fighting for survival, trying to become important before you die. Vedanta says you are more like a wave that forgot its water. You're running around trying to become a better wave, a more successful wave, a more attractive wave, a more productive wave, a wave with better work-life balance. Meanwhile, your actual nature is the entire ocean. So the problem is not that you are small. The problem is that you think you are small. You're not a person trying to experience the universe. You're the universe trying to experience being a person. And this leads to the most famous sentence in Vedanta. 3 words. Tat Tvam Asi. It means you are that. You are not just a person in the universe. You are not just a character in reality. Vedanta says the awareness inside you, the observer we talked about, is the same reality that everything else is made of, the same reality that stars are made of, the same reality that galaxies are made of, the same reality that life itself is made of, which is a huge fucking idea. That might be the biggest identity plot twist in human history, because it means you are not a small, miserable thing trying to survive in a big universe. You are the universe experiencing itself from a particular point of view. You are not in reality. You are reality, temporarily appearing as a person. And if that sounds strange, that's okay. Vedanta has been sounding strange for about 3,000 years. Follow the thread all the way through, and Vedanta lands in one brutal place. What's most real in you is not separate from what's most real in everything. So after all this philosophical destruction, Vedanta arrives at a very simple but very explosive conclusion. The deepest part of you is not a person. It's existence itself. You're spending your whole life trying to become someone. More successful, more important, more interesting, more whatever the fuck. Vedanta basically says that's the wrong project. You're not here to become someone. You're here because something is already happening, and it's temporarily happening as you. So maybe the goal of life is not to build the perfect personality, career, or story. Maybe the goal is just to realize you are not the character. You're the thing the whole story is happening to. And that is a very different way to wake up tomorrow morning.